So my name's Sobanan. I am CEO at Breakthrough Social Enterprise, and we're an organization that really supports people to understand how to adapt using AI to what we call the digital economy. Now, AI skills are really pertinent to this, and we understand for employers, it can often be quite a fearful journey when it comes to hiring AI ready talent for a number of different reasons. But what we wanted to do is really create a practical guide on how employers can hire AI ready talent and how we as an organization can support you on that journey. So if at any point you're interested in being able to hire AI ready talent, or that's something you want to look at, just drop us a message, drop us an email, and we're more than happy to sit and have a meeting with you to discuss how you can actually hire AI ready talent. Now, the one thing that we can all agree on is that the AI shift is already here. We know that companies, organizations, governments are talking about AI nearly every day. More money is being invested in this space than was invested in getting a man on the moon. And we're seeing it reshape every industry. It doesn't matter if you work in hospitality or you work in finance or law, you can see how AI can be used or is being used to support the changes within that industry. Now, the key thing I want you to remember throughout this is that this is really being figured out by people as and when it's happening. And I think the key thing to remember there is that while AI changes day in, day out, the skills involved change, even the theoretical knowledge behind it is persistently changing. So really understanding that the shift is here, but how do companies, small businesses really participate in this and use it to change not just their revenue, but also the productivity within their organization? So here's some of the things that employers are actually facing. They have this pressure to adopt AI. That is absolutely clear, right? You can see that whether it's in government or large organization, market forces are demanding that people actually adopt AI and use it to improve productivity across the organization. Now, I was watching a video earlier today about 20x organizations in Silicon Valley, and they talk about how instead of hiring people now, what they do is they build AI agents before they hire someone. So the person being hired in can use an AI agent to do the work of, say, 10 or 20 people through just supporting the AI agent. So market forces are clearly demanding faster innovation. And I remember I had a manager once who told me it's not about what you like, it's about what the market likes. And the market right now clearly does like AI. There's also a skills uncertainty that is super clear. So we understand that AI capability as a term is changing day in, day out. Initially, prompt engineering back in 2022 and early 23, AI engineering, machine learning engineering, data science was considered the sort of upper echelons of AI capability or AI talent. Today, that's changing to agent orchestration, to managing context windows, JSON prompting, and that skills uncertainty will continue as AI capability and AI itself continues to change. Again, making the wrong hire can be massively costly. And that's something to clearly understand, that employers can be afraid to hire AI capable talent because not only does it cost more than traditional talent, but if there is a mistake there, it can cause massive risks, compliance risks through personal data exposure or through the unethical use of AI or irresponsible uses that can damage both the business's reputation, but ultimately can then negatively impact the employer. But what does AI ready really mean? And the thing is, it's not just about technical knowledge. So back in the day, it used to just mean you could program or you could handle large data sets and you could run data analysis on them or draw insights or create dashboards that could communicate to senior stakeholders. That's changing completely to just being able to use AI tools in daily workflows. The key things we look for in our programs and we teach is how do we support someone to apply AI both in their personal lives and their professional lives? And these daily workflows could be anything from setting up emails. It could be setting up an agent to look through your emails and provide you summaries, to get AI news provided to your inbox day in, day out. But the understanding that there are limitations to this, and where should a human use human judgment and where should we use AI judgment, and understanding the limitations between these key areas and being able to exercise judgment and make good decisions is the key thing that employers are looking for. But it's also what it means to be AI ready. You can get people who are too optimistic about AI and believe that it can entirely transform business, but that kind of thinking can be narrow-minded given that there are some constraints that are purely human. Finally, using AI safety is non-negotiable. You've got to be able to use AI safely with the personal data, so complying with regulation like GDPR, but also with clients. Again, a famous example is one of the big four in Australia actually did a government report using AI, and there were so many hallucinations in the report that the organization ended up getting fined. And understanding that this for a small business can literally sink the organization is key to understanding why AI safety and using it safely is very pertinent in this discussion. And finally, there has to be measurable productivity gains. If we do not think about business through the lens of productivity, we can end up falling into the trap of thinking about cost cutting and reduction. Productivity gains means if we can use AI to do 10 times more work than we did previously, how do we measure that within a business? So, whether that's in the applications that are done, or whether that's in how we as an organization measure the definition of productivity day to day. Here are some simple applications of AI in businesses today. And there are many more creative uses, but this will give you a little bit of an insight into if you're going to a business or if you want to employ someone in to do these roles, how to approach it. So within admin and operations, things like transcripts, for example, for the first time, if someone's not paying attention in a meeting, they can get a transcript with actions provided to them at the end of each meeting. But also when it comes to internal reports. So now if I as a want to understand what's going on in my business, I can I can absolutely look at how I turn those meeting transcripts into an internal report. So being able to be kept up to date with everything that's going on at the same time as being kept up to date with what's going on, understanding that that process can be automated. So for example, day to day, I might use something like Slack that I have attached transcripts to where I can actually draw in insights from meetings that the team have had in my absence. Customer support. So if you have a traditional set of FAQs that your customers persistently questions that they persistently ask, using chat assistants to support with that. But even today, customer support has gone beyond that, far beyond that, where you can actually see people using AI chat assistants that can think for themselves using the business knowledge that exists. You can also summarize customer feedback at scale. So for the first time where customers are asking questions or providing feedback, thousands of entries at a time, you can use AI to find the patterns in that. And then responding, instead of waiting for a human to look through everything and respond, you can respond straight away. When it comes to content campaigns, personalized outreach emails, and just marketing in general, the content creation process has never been easier, whether that's in creating images or whether that's been in qualifying leads. When it comes to finance, we've seen that we can now look at cash flows and forecasts using AI to help us to figure out what's going right and what's going wrong, and how do we navigate that process collectively. And finally, within HR and recruitment, you can think about how when you get thousands of job applications through the door, how you as an organization can start to use AI to help to manage that process, to manage elements, to make it easier, make it more digestible and more human-like, because now you can focus on connecting during job interviews as opposed to previously, which was sifting through every single application and hoping for the best. Now, one of the key things is you want to look at how you make sure that an SME, no matter what organization they are or the size they are, can use AI. So very simple processes include summarization, using AI to get a really large data set. So for example, that could be your entire Google Drive or the history of your organization, and summarize that into a strategy or a draft document. You can use it to make the first version of anything. It doesn't mean it's the final version, but it's the version you can start to run with. Humans can check, but at the same time, you can ask the AI to check to make sure that it makes sense or there are no hallucinations, or you can use other AIs to cross-reference with other large language models to make sure that things are as accurate as possible. And then you can send it with confidence. And that's the key thing to remember, is that your ability to send things and deliver faster output is what's really measurable in a world where really the response times have become seconds. You know, in the past, we used to write letters to each other. We used to write emails. Emails might take a day. Letters, again, would take potentially weeks. But today, with the use of AI and the use of instant messaging, you can respond to someone much faster. And these simple automations really do create measurable efficiency gains. Think about how long it took to read entire documents in the past. Today, that can be done in a matter of minutes. Now, why are traditional hiring signals failing for AI? Why is it that every business wants AI within their organization but are struggling to find the right talent? Because CV buzzwords do not equal applied skill. Having applied AI skills means, are you able to actually do what you say you can do and actually build workflows that work? So this means that if you were asked to create an email automation or to replace an executive assistant with AI, are you capable of doing that? Secondly, certifications generally lag behind. So this means that if you got a certification in AI back in 2023, it might not be relevant today in 2026. And just keeping that in mind is key because AI is changing day in, day out. In my own case, I was very proficient in using Chat GPT or OpenAI's APIs, but then as Claude became more and more proficient and capable, I was lagging in that area and I had to develop those skills. But a certificate couldn't really evidence those skills the same way me actually just using it over this weekend and learning it could. And finally, interviews don't reveal workflow capability, meaning that someone could tell you in an interview about all the things they can automate, but can they actually do it in a business? Can they actually do it in a day-to-day situation? And the key thing to remember is your AI integration skills are determined by your portfolio, what you can actually do day to day. They're not determined by what you say. And is one of the reasons that we're seeing the rise of smaller and smaller organizations having outsized impacts in their work. Because what we're seeing is more so that individuals who know how to apply AI are much better than teams who know how to superficially use tools. The key things that are affecting SMEs right now. So we know that the SME AI skills gap isn't working. We know that SMEs are struggling to find people with those AI skills to support them. They know AI matters. They know that you should be using AI day to day. They know it can increase their efficiency and their workload. But the point is that there is no clear talent supply. If you have AI ready capabilities, you will choose to work for a larger firm because you will be around better talent, whether that's in big tech or consultancies. So how do SMEs start to gather some of that talent that is within general organizations? And finally, assessment uncertainty. So employers don't actually know how to evaluate these skills. So that means that if you're interviewing for a role and you don't actually know what you're interviewing that candidate for, how can you ensure that you're getting the right person? In a way, it's the blind leading the blind. If you, as someone who works in talent acquisition or as a business leader, are looking to hire someone who can build workflow automations and you've never built a workflow automation before, how do you know you've got the right person for the job? There's a clear cost of doing nothing here. That's the thing that I really want to make evident, that there is an operational cost of inaction, meaning that you as a business are losing competitive advantage every day. You're losing employee productivity because instead of them being able to use an LLM or use agents, they don't know what to do. And competitors are automating, whether that's large businesses, whether that's other smaller businesses with better tech skills. Competitors are moving faster than ever before, which means that they're then able to essentially adopt and then make innovation gains at a rate that if you're not using AI, you wouldn't even be able to conceptualize. But at the same time, staff are being expected to keep up with those who are using AI tools. So we're seeing this asymmetric reality in the market where people who are using AI tools, organizations who are really outpacing organizations that don't. And what this is creating is burnout for those staff who don't know how to use automation and AI, and then creating these massive competitive advantage for organizations that do. And finally, massive automation savings that could be made that aren't being made in an environment where things cost more. It costs more to employ someone now. It costs more to actually have someone in the organization as a PAYE employee. So this means that when you're thinking about hiring someone, if you haven't already made those automations or know how to or know what you want, you will end up having these unrealized costs because you don't know the opportunity cost of not having that individual there till they start working. Now, hiring AI skills comes with risks. The wrong hire costs we spoke about, recruitment expenses, and the key thing where once you have someone in your organization, you have to wait for them to perform to see how they do with their project prior to actually making a decision on whether to keep them or not, which means that there's significant financial exposure, 3-4 months of salary costs and onboarding time. But you can also imagine the misuse of AI tools. Some people don't use AI in the best way they could, which then causes a massive impact for them and their client relationships and can totally sink brands. You saw this recently with organizations using AI video tools for their marketing without telling their customers they were doing that. And this caused significant reputational exposure. Data exposure, if they don't know how to protect personal data or the organization's data, they could be giving away competitive advantages to competitors or to the internet without knowing how to do it. You can see prompt injection hacks, and these can create massive damage for people because this can actually hijack AIs that are agents and essentially impact the way you're working. Compliance failures, if you disrupt GDPR or if you have regulatory breaches, these come with fines, and these fines are massive and can really impact organizations, especially smaller ones. And finally, workforce disruption. One of the biggest things I see time and time again within organizations is when they're adopting AI, people are worried about their jobs. This concern about their jobs comes from the sad reality that people think that they're going to be replaced by these tools, and the reality is in the short term, this isn't the case. In the short term, AI augmentation of roles is the key thing to look for. But the one thing that I would really, really like people to understand is AI can help to reduce the amount of work that people do day to day and ensures that AI integration can happen smoothly. And the workforce disruption piece is something to encourage people to reflect on their own value that they're bringing to the workplace. Because we can, if for example we went back in time and people told you that for example, don't use Excel, don't use Microsoft, because then if you don't know how to use those tools, you won't be able to get a job. That would be really bad advice, because going against the trend or going against the flow can often be the worst decision economically. So what are some low risk ways to bring AI into your organization? You can have pre-vetted job-ready talent. Through Breakthrough, we can provide you with learners who have actually gone through programs, learned these skills, and they can be provided to you on short-term placements. This means that they can be supported to you on trial periods, on freelance contracts, fixed-term contracts, that can help to reduce a lot of that stress. And then finally, think about project-based AI support. Like if you have an individual thing in mind, you want to get an executive assistant, but you want to test out an EA with AI, how can you do that? And also, how do you build capability into your organization through this? Because the key thing I want you to remember is that when you hire for capability, it doesn't matter if they do a different project from initially intended or the placement is different from intended. They will still be able to thrive within the organization because they will be able to spot problems and proactively solve them. So the key thing with pre-vetted AI talent, and I think one of the reasons that we at Breakthrough so heavily believe in this idea of like practical experience over academic or professional, is because we've seen time and time again where we've hired and people with master's degrees or even PhDs in these tools don't necessarily know how to apply them on a day-to-day level. And that means that they don't know how to do real world AI implementation to solve problems within a business. So this means that it could be working with people to solve those problems, or it could be understanding how businesses work, because ultimately you need that on the ground experience with understanding how to apply those tools, whether that's in automation or AI, and then also understanding those responsible AI practices. The difficulty with responsible AI practices is they vary so heavily depending on where in the world you are and who you're working with. If we were all based in America, personal data regulation is very lax, meaning that there isn't really a lot to protect people when it comes to their privacy or to essentially prevent their personal data being used to combination of both monitor and advertise to them. Whereas GDPR does provide really strong data governance in the UK. And the key thing I want to mention is good data governance precedes good AI governance. You can't have one without the other. Finally, business-facing communication. The reason that understanding how things work in a business is key is that you have to be able to translate technical concepts for non-technical stakeholders. So not everyone is going to understand what an AI agent does, or what a large language model is, or what a black box AI is. These kinds of concepts require someone to break them down and make them understandable and digestible for any of the non-technical stakeholders within an organization. And finally, when you're integrating AI tools, you will expect resistance. You will expect people to really dislike you, to have issues with the way you're approaching it or how you're approaching it. And what you've got to be able to do is really calmly and really collaboratively explain to them why there's a benefit there for them, why they need to do this and think about these issues in the way that they are in order to make their day-to-day working lives better. And that's the key thing I want to mention here is there is a world out there where AI does create a more abundant, healthy, wholesome world. And there is one where the world does get infinitely worse than we're currently in. But I think one of the key things I want you guys to remember is like we all as citizens have an impact on this, whether you own a business, you're a professional, or whether you are just any human being on the planet, you should contribute to these discussions. And I'll share another platform. So this organization I've shared in the chat has a range of courses on there, some of which are in AI ethics, governance, and AGI strategy. And the key things I want you to like really sort of conceptualize is this is happening way faster than people thought possible. And like, I don't know, have you guys read AI 2027? Just feel free to put a thumbs up or anything like that if you read it or not. First, as an employer, the one thing I want people to sort of take away is like you first need to look at the tasks day to day that AI can improve. So this could be simple things, right? For example, currently for me, that was loads of messages on Slack happen, which is our messaging tool, and then we have loads of meetings happening, and I can't keep up with all of those. So how do I keep up with what's going on in them, decisions people are making, or any issues that I need to foresee, but at the same time understand how AI can support with that process? So I currently have an agent that runs through my Google Drive transcripts and then Slack messages and gives me an update every morning. Then what you do is you look for a way to provide that workflow application. So if I didn't know how to do that, what I would look for is someone who's potentially worked as an executive assistant or a virtual assistant before, and then someone who's used AI within that process. Then what you want to do is start super small. And if when I'm hiring for this, the key thing is as well is that you want to validate capability through real world tasks. So I'd ask that person, have you actually used AI before, or can you imagine what this workflow might look like? Not giving them too many specifics. So maybe say we use Google Drive, or we have a Google Workspace account and we have access to ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. What would you do, and how would you create this workflow from scratch? What are the things you'd foresee going wrong? What would you foresee going right? How would you audit it? And the key thing is just remembering starting small allows you to then scale safely. The issue that a lot of people have is that if you bring someone in and you're like, I want you to use AI to transform my entire business, that person might not know where to start. And it also might not be the right person for that specific type of work. So the key thing is AI adoption doesn't need disruption. It's one of these weird Silicon Valley terms, this idea of like, disruption is a really positive thing and we should aim to disrupt everything. AI adoption should be harmonious in some ways, because in essence, what you're doing is you're getting a PhD level intern or someone with PhD level intelligence and bringing them in, and they only will do things directed by you. So this means that if you had the most compliant and obedient intern in the world, and they were also top 1% in intelligence, think about how they could support teams. They could help teams to learn faster, to develop their understanding of the work they're doing and the impact it's having much faster, and in a way that really humans didn't have access to before. So with the right governance frameworks, the right policies in place, and the right mindset towards these tools, AI becomes more than just a productivity enhancement. It becomes something that is a co-pilot, essentially something that people can use in their day-to-day work to make their work more enjoyable and intellectually engaging. The things that I hope you've taken away from today, and I can share across the slides in the chat as well for any of you guys. If there's anyone you know who are employers, business owners, SMEs, feel free to share with them. Even micro businesses, like we can find ways of making this work for micro businesses, whether that's through breakthrough supporting them on the placement or even working with them to actually run AI pilots. But so AI ready means execution means like you want to make sure that that person can actually build and support the workflows you want done. So this means that they can execute from day one. It's one of the key things I look for when hiring into Breakthrough. Can this person pick up the tools that we have and provide value from as they're even doing their onboarding? Another one is that SMEs adopting AI safely is again a non-negotiable. This is like one of those things that I've been reading about and watching more and more over the last few weeks, is that in the UK, we really have an aversion to adopting technology at the same rate as our American counterparts or our Chinese counterparts, or really many other countries across the world, meaning that we often are quite slow because we're quite skeptical of the tools. So we need to remember that practical pathways exist, whether it's pathways like Breakthrough or other organizations that support organizations to do this in a safe and equitable manner. Hiring never needs to be high risk. There are so many different ways to hire people today, whether that's through PAYE, part-time contracts, freelance agreements, whether that's through on fixed term basis, whether that's through subcontracting agreements. All of these are opportunities for people to hire or to use talent within their organization in creative ways that allows them to have pre-vetted talent, but also to use trial periods to reduce any of that risk and uncertainty. You also need to remember that when you've got someone who's got a portfolio, so the reason that CVs are becoming more and more out of date, the reason people rely on platforms like LinkedIn or portfolio websites, is we're seeing now that if you can prove you do what you say you can do, that's actually more valuable than having a large employer on your CV. So in the past, it was about working for the professional firms and then, going off to do something. Today, it's about that young person who's built really cool tools on the internet and built a GitHub or built a LinkedIn account off the back of it, is actually has a much larger advantage than someone who has had a 10-year illustrious career in the largest firms in the country. And the key reason is that the way of proving your track record has changed. And finally, the time to act is now. AI is only accelerating in its development. We are now getting AIs that are coding and building AIs and improving themselves day in, day out. So just remembering that the competitive advantage accrues to those who adopt as early as possible and as thoughtfully as possible in a world which is rapidly changing. So again, assuming that you guys are all from our programs, I just wanted to sort of put this out there, is we're always looking for SMEs to work with. So if you want, as people on our programs, the benefit also comes to you guys where SMEs can provide us with real life projects that we can then provide to our cohorts. So I'll give you an example. There was a group of people at Thames Reach who want to build an app. So one of the things that we'll be going out to specific cohorts with is the opportunity to build an employability app for people experiencing homelessness using vibe coding tools. And the key thing is that this is done in a very low risk way to both the people at Thames Reach, the homelessness charity, and then also to the learners at Breakthrough, because they will be under Breakthrough supervision throughout that process. And a lot of the times it's getting that first project out, building and contributing to that first outcome that helps to build the foundation for a career. So if you guys know any SMEs or people who run companies who would benefit from exploring AI-ready hiring, please do ask them to give us a shout. And finally, AI capability is definitely achievable without unnecessary disruption or risk. As much as we can see that when we're adopting it on a large scale, whether that's on a government level or whether that's in a large organization, there could be disruption or risk. Their incentives and the way those organizations runs are completely different. Moni, I think you said it best. Like when you look at organizations like Lloyd's, if they were to adopt AI, they could end up replacing entire teams. IBM, I think, is another great example of an organization that replaced their entire HR team using AI and then hired in HR talent. And the key things that I would like people to remember with this is that it doesn't need to have that disruption risk. It just needs to have real intention setting and a effective and slow process to be able to get that in. Copy of this too. So when we think about like the traditional what's it called? The traditional organizational hierarchy, that's actually changing. So like as of last year, this already started. And the issue was that now it's like if you're junior, the reason the age thing happens, it's a lot about pay as well. So you can pay a younger person less and they're actually more technologically adept to do stuff that then involves them using AI. And basically like the estimations are like 2026 is going to look more like this, 2027 will look more like that, 2028, 2029, and then it's just like this sort of onward journey towards this. And like I'll share this in the chat as well for anyone who wants to have a look through. But there's that. And then I think like the other bit is like, how do you as an individual with your unique experiences stand out in this market?